I prepared for my first foray into the desert. I mean, I really prepared. For months, I worked out all the logistics so that my wife and I could see the Grand Canyon. Late May, early June, we wanted to avoid the crowds and did not want to endure the heat. We were going to camp in the actual canyon itself. I found a deal on plane tickets to Phoenix, Arizona. And to avoid the cost of checked luggage, we brought only a small amount of clothing and only enough gear to fill our packs. After getting our rental car at the airport, we made a quick stop at one of the greatest supermarkets, Trader Joe's, and then on to REI, where we loaded up on sunblock, hydration tablets, energy bars, and electrolyte drinks. A quick hike into the mountains surrounding Phoenix to stretch our legs, and we were off. It was a cheap, small rental car, and going from Phoenix to Flagstaff is mostly up, so that little car's motor was very overworked. When we got there, we set up camp on the rim, and after a day of 60-degree weather and sunshine, it snowed. My wife, who is always looking for ways to lessen our carbon footprint, slept in the car with the engine running. We were not prepared for the coldness of the desert. The next day, we planned a hike into the Grand Canyon, and a ranger warned us that temperatures would exceed 100 degrees. The desert is a land of extremes, and it is difficult to fully prepare for. Likewise, the spiritual path before us has ups and downs, confidence and inadequacy, emptiness and fullness, limitless thoughts to none at all, brightness and darkness, death and life. From atop the rim, it looked like a beautiful, empty nothing, a simple red rock abyss. But after hiking into the canyon and sometimes crawling down its steep paths, we noticed abundant life. Life was hidden and everywhere. The cacti in full bloom with bright red flowers near the ground, tadpoles in the small puddles of a dried up creek bed, even evergreen bushes big enough to crawl under for shade, roots growing out of rocks. Even in the dryness of the desert, life still finds a way. Now, all of this life was not apparent from the safety and comfort of the rim. We cannot speculate, theorize, and analyze the spiritual desert from afar. To get its full benefit, we must crawl in and experience it directly. As we descended into the canyon on one of the main paths and observed the different layers of rock, we came upon 3 young men. The one in the middle had his arms around the other 2 and barely was limping along. All 3 had beet red sunburns. Having had a similar experience while biking, I knew what the one in the middle needed: electrolytes. I asked them if they needed help, and they said, no, we have plenty of water. Our friend is just sick. But I insisted that they take this hydration tablet. This will make you better, I said. And after he plopped it in his water and drank some, he did get dramatically better. He had never been to the desert before, and he came completely unprepared. Preparing for the spiritual desert involves letting go, letting things unfold into the mystery. Sometimes it is doing away with forced cheerfulness and a seeking of direction and guidance in silence. Or perhaps it may be acknowledging the frailty and vulnerability of our lives so that we travel the trail with caution and with reverence. Or possibly just letting the wisdom of others save us. The desert can be a severe, lonely place. You can hike for hours and never see another soul. In the Grand Canyon, there are signs on the rim that say, "Enter with at least another person and take plenty of water." One sign told the story of a marathon runner in top physical shape who intended to hike down to the river and back up in one day alone. She broke an ankle, didn't bring much water or food with her, and couldn't get out in a timely manner and died. It is best to go into the spiritual desert with someone else, a good friend, a spiritual director, a minister, a therapist, someone who goes into the desert regularly, who knows the lay of the land and can show us the way out if we get lost, who can point out all the beauty all around us. At the very least, we need to take a journal with us, prepared to bring something back from the desert. My first foray into a conscious spiritual desert experience was with a spiritual director. I was not feeling good. The fireworks of faith had faded. The divine love that once flowed like a river had dried up. My spiritual practices just weren't working. I learned that this was all normal. God's way of weaning us, as my director put it. A life of faith will always lead you through a desert. But hurting and lingering too long in the desert can lead to depression, more confusion, and even stagnation. The desert is not easy. The desert is not a place to stay. It is a tireless place that we have to prepare to go to. In the desert, we are stripped down to the essentials of life. We need water, and we need to stay cool, or we will die. It is a place where one cannot hide from the scorching sun of truth. The desert is a situation and a place to go through. You journey on in and then out. It is not a place to dwell in. In the night, darkness cools the desert, and life becomes even more abundant. A whole chorus of bullfrogs kept us up at night. The plants opened their pores to breathe. Snakes and mice came out to feed. In the darkness of the desert, there is coolness and life. Though apparently lonely, dead, and solitary, the spiritual desert is actually a place of rebirth, renewal, and reformation. The dry darkness can initially be a painful place, a place we resist to go to. It is the unknown. But perhaps because in this desert we deal with our own mortality and our own painful past, we may not want to go there. But though we may not feel it, discreet life abounds. Confronted pain brings the joy of new life. The dryness of the spiritual desert gives us newness. This desert experience is essential to our growth. When we spent our time in the backcountry of the Grand Canyon, our whole route revolved around where we could get water. The water coming up from the depths, not from the sky. At these springs, life flourished. The shade of deciduous trees, tall grasses, flowers, and mosses. The desert experience is our spiritual purification for a new life of freedom and love. We seek to discover a new spiritual energy from the depths of life, like an oasis. The backcountry of the Grand Canyon is a rugged emptiness. It is so much different from everyday life. We rarely saw their hikers. The wide open spaces, the silence, and the solitude all revealed the holy. Oftentimes, silence is the best contact point with the holy. The silence of the desert reminds us divinity is everywhere. I like hiking trips because everything you need for survival is on your back. All of life's essentials, water, food, clothes, and shelter. The desert experience is one's inner emptiness where we can detach and simply live life down to its bare essentials of who we are and what we want to become. We need these moments of detachment where the goal is renewal and freedom from the busy chaos, the threats to our democracy, and the loss of healthy life. The desert is more than resting or talking about our troubles. The goal of the desert is a more fuller union with all that is. In the desert, we might not know what we want, where we are going, or who we can trust. It is arid, and yet we thirst for more. The desert of the soul is a normal experience for all who want spiritual fulfillment. The journey of faith isn't always pleasant and cheerful. It happens without our own doing, like a summer's brown drought. Finally, going down into the Great Canyon, I observed it must be a short distance, for I can see the river ahead. I could not rest with the river in view. I just kept going, almost delusional. We made it. The river at the center of our journey was cold. I mean, really cold, ice cold, like dying of hypothermia cold, like Lake Superior cold. One quick dip in and back out, all that salty gunk left our bodies. Go into the dryness. And at our lowest point, we will find a cool river. Let it purify you and awaken you into newness. Amen, and blessed be.